everybody. It is the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to a live stream that I have been eager to get back to, the DC Universe animated film live show. And I am so glad that you're all here tonight to talk a little bit more about the wonderful world that is the DC animated film library. But what makes me all the more excited is that I am finally reuniting with one of my good friends here in the YouTube community. He has been with me from the very start of this successful live stream, and I've been revisiting some of the old episodes and just to warm myself up for it again. And let me tell you, I am just so excited to get another great conversation in. So Brian Lomax Movie Talks, he's back. Great to see you again, my friend. It has been a while, but I'm so glad to be back here to talk more with DC with you.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It does feel like forever since we last talked. I can't even remember what the last films were that we discussed, to be honest. But yeah, let's get into it. It's Batman tonight, so
well, yeah, absolutely. That's your bread and butter right there. And
definitely.
of course, we've got to acknowledge the fact that this is the 80th anniversary of the Dark Knight himself. So it is only appropriate that we start this new year off fresh with some Batman films. Although I think the two of us can agree that they are definitely an interesting bunch of Batman films. So just in case you guys have been with us since episode 1, I've referred to these films in books. Basically, a series of films creates a certain book. So tonight we are officially closing book 5, I believe. We may go back one more time. I'm not exactly sure, but we're going to be fluctuating in between books 5 and 6 today. So the first movie that we're going to tackle is definitely one of the most controversial ones. I mean, it was a landmark achievement because of the fact that this was the first film in the library to be given an R rating. And of course, it is based on one of the most cult favorites in the world of Batman. That, of course, was Batman the Killing Joke. Bruce Timm returns as one of the producers, and we also get two of our favorite voice actors this time around. Kevin Conroy comes back, as well as the one that we've all been waiting to see for a long time, the great Mark Hamill returns to voice the Joker. So, Brian, you are the bigger Batman fan than I am, so I'd like to get your impressions and your thoughts.
Yeah, this this is a big disappointment for me. Oh man, it's really tough because The Killing Joke is one of my all-time favorites graphic novels. It would be in my top 5 graphic novels of all time. I think Batman Year One being probably the #1 favorite. Yeah, it was almost, well, it is. It's a perfect story in graphic novel form, and I just feel like they've had to pad it out. They've said, we can't release a 40-minute movie, a 45-minute movie, but you kind of, by the end of it, you kind of wish they would have done, or at the very least adapt a different story to put on the beginning of it. Like there's some good stories out there with the Joker and his origins that they could have matched up with this. So there's a comic book story called Images, and it deals with the first meeting of Batman and the Joker. So it would have been, if they'd have adapted that, it kind of leads really straight into The Killing Joke, because Batman and Joker have their first confrontation, their first battle. Joker's sent to Arkham, and then you could literally pick up straight after with Batman going to Arkham and trying to, do his bit where he's like, look, in case we never get this chance again, I want to know that I at least made the effort to try and reason with you, and then that's where you pick up. But so to me, that would have been the more logical story to kind of adapt into The Killing Joke. And it's also referenced in Batman Year One, and obviously we've already had the Batman Year One movie. So, I mean, have we had that one yet? Have we done that one yet?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact,
right.
I will put the playlist of all the videos at the end of this video when I officially add the intro and outro. So yeah, we have reviewed Batman Year One, and you had a lot of great things to say.
Well, yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it, because I thought it was really faithful adaptation, and that ends with the whole thing with Gordon saying that, you know, there's this guy kind of poisoning the reservoirs, calling himself the Joker. That'd be a perfect place to kind of pick up the beginning of this film if they'd adapted that Images storyline and then carried it through to the Killing Joke. But instead, they stick this essentially what I would call an average episode of Batman the Animated Series at the beginning of it. They literally pad out the front of this film with what would have been, you know, if you'd have watched it as a 20-minute episode of Batman the Animated Series, you'd be like, well, that was a fine episode, you know, nothing special, but fine enough, fair enough. So it sullies what they've done with the second half of this film, because the second half is a pretty damn good iteration of the Killing Joke. I could have done without the song and dance number, and
yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that.
yeah. But I get where they were going with that, and I think when Joker does do his little song and dance number, it is contrasted with Gordon going through what he's going through and kind of screaming Barbara's name. So that bit of it works, but it's kind of, yeah, the whole loony that I could have done without that, to be honest. But
well, yeah. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, it had been a very long time since I actually read The Killing Joke. I read The Killing Joke when I was actually, I think, in my freshman year of high school. And every single time I see that book in a bookstore, I'm like, I got to pick it up. And I never do. And I'm sort of upset with myself because when Batman the Dark Knight became an animated film, I made sure that I read the graphic novel before I actually watched the two-part films. And I think that it was a much better thing for me to do, but I never did that for The Killing Joke. I mean, I was excited to see this movie because of the fact that, you know, like I said, they brought the original voice cast, and that also includes Tara Strong returning to voice Batgirl. And Tara Strong, of course, is one of my personal favorites. Especially considering the fact that this was one of the first 3 films where the DC animated team had a new voice director in Wes Gleason. And I'll definitely tell you, in regards to this film, in terms of getting the voice actors, I think he really did play it safe, because could they have gone with other voice actors? Yes, they could have, but, you know, the fact they went with some familiar ones, because I believe it was Mark Hamill himself who said, I will come back to voice the Joker if you make an animated film of The Killing Joke. But I agree with you. One of the biggest faults about adapting The Killing Joke to film is the fact that it's a very short story, brilliantly written by that crackpot that is Alan Moore. I mean, we can't deny the fact that he is one, but he writes brilliant stories. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to see the Batgirl story at the beginning. I mean, it had promise, because one of the main drivers of the whole Killing Joke is because of what Joker does to Batgirl. And this plays off on what happened with Batman in terms of Jason Todd. You know, like, another person that worked with him who he cared for was hurt by, ironically, the exact same villain. But when I look at that movie, especially before the true adaptation comes, it's literally like you're watching 2 different films. I mean, I think one of the stupidest things that happens in this movie is, especially in the beginning, they tone down the language compared to the second half of the film. And I'm like, why are you trying to tone down your language when you're making a rated R movie? You can throw an F-bomb out there. There's nothing wrong with that if it's rated R. This is not supposed to be a kid-friendly film. And that's one of the few things I think that was the biggest fault for the prologue. It felt like they were trying to make it a film that kids could actually watch. And then the sex scene happens, but that's something we don't need to touch upon because, believe it or not, the film didn't do much of that either. But that one definitely was a bit on the awkward side.
Yeah,
But,
I don't buy it. I don't buy
now,
that Batman is getting down and dirty with Batgirl. It's just
it's been
like,
referenced though many times.
well, in the comic books.
And in the cartoon, there was an episode of Batman Beyond when Barbara is actually telling Terry McGinnis that she and Batman knocked the boots.
Yeah, but this is, it's the same Bruce. This is all in Bruce Timm's head, isn't it? So he's probably had this in his head for years as a place he wanted to go, which is why it showed up in Batman Beyond. But it's like outside of that, I can't say that I've ever really seen any hints of it anywhere. And we've had Batwoman,
yes,
back in the 70s, 80s, like, but yeah, this is Batgirl here. This is Gordon's daughter.
exactly.
This is like, I just don't think you it betrays the trust that Gordon has in Batman. For me, I just see it as a betrayal. I don't think Batman would do that because I don't think Batman would want to betray that trust that Gordon has in him to basically take his daughter to bed. It's bad enough that he has his daughter out with him at night fighting crime, and I think he feels very protective of her for that reason. But yeah, to go that step, no, just.
And also, the villain in that whole story in that whole first part is so pathetically weak. I just don't. It really does not fit. And I think that when you actually get to the true adaptation, like I said before, you're sort of getting an entirely different film. Yeah. And by that time, especially if you're not a hardcore Batman fan, if you haven't read the source material, you've basically lost your whole audience. But
the thing is, it's like the film starts out, and you get the Killing Joke adaptation, right? So you have to make it a Joker film, but the film starts as a Batgirl film. So we've got like a half-hour Batgirl film. And then it's just suddenly becomes a Joker film. Mm-hmm. And Batgirl is pretty much dispensed with, other than the one scene in which Joker takes her down. And it's like, and at that point, she's not even Batgirl. She's just Barbara Gordon. She's just Gordon's daughter. Which to me, if you got somebody coming to this who doesn't really know the comic books, isn't really that interested, but just wants to come to it as a film because they enjoy the odd Batman film, I think it actually would work better for them not knowing all this crap that they put on at the beginning, because it's just, if you've just got the Killing Joke section, this is Gordon's daughter, we know who Gordon is, and the fact that this is happening to his daughter is more than enough to make us weep for him, to make us feel invested in what he's going through. So when you tack on this rubbish that's on at the beginning, it deflates the greatness of the actual Killing Joke section. So yeah, it's.
But when you get to the Killing Joke section, this is where I sort of want to defend the film just a little bit.
Yes,
I do feel that the true highlights of this film is Mark Hamill's performance, because this is one of the most. I mean, it's like when you have watched Mark Hamill throughout history of him voicing the Joker, you get a very kiddie, true, unreal, super villainy that is fun to watch. Like, you are watching his performance, you're smiling from ear to ear at how deliciously evil he is. But when you see him as this Joker on screen and you hear Mark Hamill speak, this is the first time that I've ever heard Mark Hamill voice the Joker, and I am terrified of this Joker because he's not in your face crazy. He's crazy, don't get me wrong, but he's very soft spoken and very Shakespearean in a way. I thought that the lines that he's given in this film, he's very poetic. It's such an unusual version of the Joker. And the whole story that revolves around him and Batman is a story that I think Batman fans, up until that point, were very much waiting for. Like, Batman sitting down, even though it ends up not being the Joker at Arkham Asylum. Like, he literally said there is going to come a day where there is going to be the final time that we face each other, and one of us is going to take the other out. And it's so eerie because it's like Batman fans know that that's going to happen, but they don't want it to happen. And I feel that outside of Batman The Dark Knight Returns, that is one of the most realistic depictions of this specific good versus evil battle. And it's quite impressive when you see this version of Batman and Joker adapted from the graphic novel to film. That's a very redeeming part of this film.
It is, but I feel like the way it's directed almost feels in some ways like it's more important to get the lines out rather than think about how they're delivered. Like I think you could have made this film so take the Killing Joke section of the film and really bring the pace down to an almost Blade Runner level of pacing, and just let those actors breathe. Like just like that. So like in that scene when Batman's like, I can't remember the exact line, but he's like, one day you're going to end up killing me, or maybe I'll even kill you. And it's like he just says it like really fast, and it's just like,
I agree. It's like you would expect them. I agree. You would expect, especially Bruce Timm being the executive producer. I mean, he didn't direct it. Sam Liu directed, I believe. You would want him to basically step in and say, let them do their work. Let them give the people a good show. And let them actually give us stuff.
Yeah, I'd just be like if I was directing those actors in that moment, I'd say just don't feel like you have to read it at a particular pace. Slow it right down. Consider each word. This is a heavy moment between these two characters, but yet when I see the scene, it's almost like Conroy's reading the lines, and I just feel like. And I don't think that's Conroy. I think that's the director. I think that's Lou. I think he. I just don't think he. I think it's a case that almost like what people accuse Zack Snyder of, which I don't actually hold to this criticism, but
I'm with you there.
Yeah, a lot of people say Zack Snyder, oh well, he just takes the comic book panels and puts them straight on the screen, but doesn't really think about mood and pacing or anything like that. I disagree with that, but I do think that in this case, that is true. That Sam Liu is essentially looking at the comic book panels. As long as we've got that piece there, as long as we've got that piece there, cut and paste it, boom, job done. And it's just like, actually, no, I don't really feel like he's got a sense of the mood of the piece and the tempo of it. To quote Whiplash, not my tempo. It's just
Truth be told, I think he actually finally realizes that when it's too late, and that's the last scene of the movie. I think that when we get to the last scene in the movie, I think that's where we actually get the characters and the voice actors at their most natural. I mean, I can watch, I actually do go on YouTube sometimes and I watch the last scene of The Killing Joke because it really is the best scene in the whole movie, because it's literally what happens at the beginning of The Killing Joke, and then that moment to a certain degree reaches that point, and what happens? The Joker tells Batman a joke.
Yeah.
And then Batman laughs. I mean, like, that's a very, I think that is a perfect way to end a story like The Killing Joke, because it's just that uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's an uncomfortable moment.
It's one of the best endings ever for a graphic novel, I think. Just because it is just the idea of these two characters both essentially being madmen. Like, but Batman is just as crazy as the Joker. It's just that he channels that in a different way, and that joke ties into who they are as characters so much. But I think a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this one, but I actually think Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy were probably the wrong choice for this film. And it's just, I think it's the style and the tone of the Batman, the animated series, isn't this film. It's not what this film requires. And so simply taking those voices, because they're iconic in that particular style of Batman, and then putting them in any kind of iteration of Batman and the Joker, I don't think it works like that. I think, and that's why Andrea Romano was so good at what she did. She cast the right voice for the piece. And yeah, I just feel like simply taking those voices from Batman the Animated Series and shoving them in this film isn't necessarily the way to go.
I'll tell you the truth. I'll actually defend you on that to a certain extent, because I told you, like I said earlier today, I think Wes Gleason, since he took the chair that Andrea Romano left empty, I mean, I'll say this right now, even though we're not going to get to this series of films anywhere in the next few months or so, I think that Wes Gleason finally got it right with the death of Superman. It took him such a long time to really do what Andrea Romano had done for so many years. But like I said, I think the issue with this one was he played it safe, because this was an adaptation that Batman fans had been waiting for. This was a film that Mark Hamill wanted to be a part of, and to agree, it's fan service, because to a larger extent, the people who have been following this animated universe since 1991-92, they had grown up. So now they said, let's give them their voices to their iconic animated characters, and let's give it to our adult audience. Now, am I saying that that was the right thing to do? Not necessarily, but like I said, sometimes they just want to play it safe and just do. I think what this really was just something to give to the fans. I don't think that this was necessarily something that they really had in mind that was actually something that they could really put some hard work into. I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know what was going on in Bruce Timm's head.
I don't think they make any of these with the intention of making a misstep or a bad film or whatever. I think they genuinely believed in what they were doing. It's just, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And like, before, when this film was announced, when they said, "Oh, we're doing The Killing Joke," I'd have been the first person to say, "Please get Kevin Conroy, please get Mark Hamill, please do it." I would. I'll hold my hands up. And when it was announced they were coming back, I was ecstatic. And it's only with hindsight, actually having seen the film, that kind of gives you an inkling into just what it is a voice casting director actually does. And I do think that in this instance, the tone of this film is not the tone of Batman the Animated Series, and therefore it does call for maybe different voices that would have suited this script better, this flavor of film better. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm good to do my wrap up of this one now.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you there. I mean,
Okay.
I think one of the other big things that was a real shot in the foot was the fact that this was actually the very first animated film since Mask of the Phantasm that actually had a limited big screen release. And yeah, at the end, I was disappointed, but at the same time, I have to give them credit because they took it as they did what they could. I don't know. I think that there was no way else they could have done it. I don't think there was any other way. I would basically give it a 2 stars out of 4 in my ratings because there's still some things that I go back to that I do enjoy watching.
Yeah, I give it a 2.5 out of 5. Like I say, you take away that opening story with Barbara, and if you just give me that Killing Joke stuff, then it is a good, solid interpretation of the story. Not perfect, but very good. Like the first bit, the Barbara Gordon, the Batgirl stuff is a 2-star film. The Killing Joke section, I would say, is a 4-star film. So because of that, average it out, you get a 3-star film for me. So yeah.
So now let's move on to another Bruce Timm produced film, and I am very curious where the conversation is going to go with this one because this, of course, brings back not just Kevin Conroy, but we also get Lauren Lester back voicing Nightwing in this movie, and we're talking about Batman, Harley, and Harley Quinn. But also, this is the first time in a long time that we go back to the original Batman the Animated Series animation style. So now we get even more fan service, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the Batman animated series for children. This is one for the older fans. I have to know what your thoughts are on Batman and Harley Quinn.
Well, when this came out, I was really looking forward to this when it came out. Just getting back to the Batman the Animated Series style. And then all the reviews started coming in and everyone was panning it. It was not received very well at all. And I was a bit downcast by that. And then I watched it and I'm like, I love this film. I don't know what people are smoking, quite frankly, because it's hilarious. If you come to this film wanting a serious Batman film, then you're an idiot for one, because it's got Harley Quinn in it. There's not going to be anything real serious about it. But no, for me, it was just that there is some stuff in there, you know, some like there's a lot of sexual innuendo, there's fart jokes, but I just have a blast with it. I do. I love the relationship between. See this where I couldn't buy the idea of Batman going with Batgirl because of that whole betrayal of trust thing there. I can actually buy the idea of Nightwing allowing something to happen between him and Harley.
She raped him.
Yeah,
she freaking raped him.
Well, not really. He allowed it. He was well into it. Clearly,
it's so funny that you use the reference of what somebody was smoking because I want to know what Bruce Timm was smoking and why didn't he share? Because this is one of the most outlandish Batman films that I have ever seen. Don't get me wrong. It is fun. It really has some great laugh out loud moments, but at the same time, I look at this and sometimes I cringe. Like, sometimes I cringe because I'm just like, oh my God. It's like, because for me, Batman is so out of place in this movie. I find him to be so out of place.
No, because that's where the humor arises.
I know, but it just doesn't fit.
Oh, it so does. It's like
everything else fits though.
No, it's because you got to look at Batman's history, and there's been all kinds of different interpretations of Batman. You can always stick Batman into any kind of situation as long as his character remains true to what we feel the character is. It doesn't matter the situation. It's like take the X-Files for example.
Right.
You know, the X-Files, that they always from season 2 onwards, they'd always throw these bizarre, usually written by Darren Morgan, comedy episodes in. You know, it started with humbug in season 2, and it hit you right out of left field. What is going on? It was like it suddenly Mulder and Scully were planted in this satire, this weird kind of humorous episode that would make you laugh, but also make you think, this isn't the X-Files. This what's going on? And yet you loved the episodes because they were different, because they were quirky, and that's the way I see this. Batman doesn't change in this. Batman is who Batman was in Batman the Animated Series.
That is true.
It's the circumstances around him that have changed, and you know, and how he reacts to those circumstances is where much of the humor arises. And it's one of the best moments for me.
Well, keep going, because it's great. This movie, if there's anything that can be said about this movie, there are some great moments. There really are.
It's the bit when Harley farts in the car, and it's just like, and Nightwing it's really childish. I get that. I get why somebody might be turned off by this moment. It's a fart gag. It's childish humor, but it's because of Batman's reaction to it that I laugh so much. And it's when he what does he call it? He calls it the smell of what's the word? What's the word he uses? He calls it, that's the smell of
I don't remember. I watched this movie like 2 months ago.
Good grief. I watched it just 2 days ago.
Oh really?
Yeah, discipline. That's it.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, that's the smell of discipline. So like Nightwing's begging him to stop the car. And he's like, it smells like something horrible, and then Batman's just like, it smells like discipline. It's just
Kevin Conroy there. He did pretty good.
it's so it's so something Batman would actually say if thrown into that circumstance, which is kind of beyond his control. But no, I love it, and it's. You have to come to this film and accept it on its own terms. And if you can do that, you can have a blast and you can really enjoy the ride.
What's actually really funny is I remember when I watched the sneak peek of this film, and Bruce Timm specifically warns the audience. He's like, this is not going to be what you think it's going to be. It's going to be a very different Batman film. So the fact that nobody listened to Bruce Timm himself is a problem in itself. Also, we have to be impressed by the fact that they also got Paget Brewster back to voice Poison Ivy. But what did you think about the fact that they got a different actress to play Harley Quinn? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of The Big Bang Theory. I love Melissa Rauch in that show as Bernadette. She is so funny, but I'm really surprised that they couldn't get Arlene Sorkin back to voice Harley Quinn. I mean, I thought that Melissa Rauch did a very good job. She definitely has a little Harley Quinn in her. I'd love to see her return to voice Harley Quinn, but you kind of wonder. It's like, I think that the movie, at least in my world, would have gotten more brownie points if you would have gotten all the original voices back for all the original animated series characters that you use. I never in my wildest dreams thought that they would ever get Lauren Lester back. Never in a million years did I think they'd ever get him back.
Yeah, no, I think she does a good job. You know, it's when we first hear Harley, I'm like,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
Harley sock? No, it's not. That's not Harley sock. No, it's not. It's not Harley socket. And then I picked the Blu-ray cover up. I'm like, I need to check this. So I'm looking. It's like, no, it's not Harley Sorkin. But whoever's doing it is doing a really good job. And and then obviously I saw the credit, and I'm like, blimey, Big Bang Theory woman. So yeah, no, I think, look, if you can't get Harley Sorkin to come back, then what can you do? You got to replace her.
Well, I'm really surprised they didn't go with the one who voiced her in Batman Arkham Asylum. She almost sounded exactly like Arlene Sorkin.
Yeah, she does do a really good job. But no, I think she does. I think Roush does a very good job. I think it's one of those iconic roles that Sorkin kind of made her own. It was her own because she was the first person to ever do Harley Quinn. She pretty much created that character. So the voice, the personality of that character, I should say, before somebody comes in and says it was written by. Yeah. No, I think as far as replacements go, Roush does as good a job as you could expect anybody to do, to be honest.
What did you think of? I mean, I also think, for me personally, one of the weak points of this film is the whole thing with the Floronic Man. I just didn't care for the story. I really thought that if Poison Ivy was a solo act, I'm pretty sure that they could have given her a much more devious plot as the villainess. But yeah, I didn't care for it. I didn't care for the story.
I didn't mind it, actually, because Floronic. I always like it when we get a new villain that we've not seen in animation before. So it was nice to have Floronic Man there, and it is a natural kind of team up as well with Poison Ivy. I like that it takes us into Swamp Thing territory.
We'll go into that before we wrap this one up for sure.
But no, I liked it because essentially he's there to give Batman and Nightwing something of a physical threat to fight, while Harley and Ivy get to go at it and have their relationship, because that's what it's really about. The film is really about Harley and Ivy again, because that everybody loved Harley and Ivy when they got together in the series, so you need to get them together here. But if you got Batman and Nightwing kind of along for the ride, is Harley is Poison Ivy a big enough threat without another physical kind of foe there to?
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they with these films, they always have to put a fair quota of action in there, that some fight scenes and that. And I just don't think Ivy is that kind of character. She's more likely to make, well, we always see it, branches come out the ground and strangle them, and that gets a little bit old pretty fast after a while. So yeah, I just think they've put Woodrow in there to pose a bit more of a physical threat, while to free Harley up to go one-on-one with Ivy. So,
well, outside of the Killing Joke, if I will say a very positive thing about this film is the fan service is there. I mean, I love how there's a very small nod to Justice League when they're talking to Booster Gold in the Batmobile. You do know that that's Bruce Timm voicing him, right?
Oh, right. Is it? No, I didn't.
Yeah. So I love the conversation, and it's so funny because when I was younger, I wrote a fan fiction Batman story. And there was a scene where the Justice League is together and they're trying to figure out who else they can get to join them in their fight. And one of the characters mentions Booster Gold, and the rest of the group in the room says, no! So I thought that was actually kind of funny, because I was like, wow, I thought of that idea a couple of years back. I thought that was really funny. But Also, that beautiful tribute to the animated series Henchmen when they go into that bar.
Oh,
And
man,
I will
so
say
good.
this. I will
So
say
good.
this. Rob Paulsen can sing Don't Pull Your Love Out to Me any day of the week. That is one of the best parts of the whole film. I love it.
It's so weird though. So it's just like
It's
these
great.
two,
It is
these twins.
great.
It's like a full-on love song, and it's these twins that are kind of singing it together. And that moment when he gets down, one of them gets down on one knee, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is so weird. This is so weird, but in a good way.
Oh,
It's really
yeah.
good.
You
That
know.
bar is just like Spot the Henchman. It's so
Oh,
good.
I remember. I watched this movie for the first time. My wife was in the room. She watched it with me. And when I screamed out Rhino, she's like, "Who?" I'm like, "Rhino!" He just pans right to the camera, and the fanboy in me goes berserk. Oh no!
They have that. They even have that robot clown that was in the
yes.
yeah. There's a
So
Joker episode
many.
where man, it's just that like just the character designs. They don't even need to tell you who they are. You just know who they are from the designs
Exactly.
of it.
That's why I loved it.
I like how they have the robot clown dancing with the robot woman from the Heart of Steel two-parter.
Yes.
It's just,
Yes.
yeah.
That scene is pure fan service. It really is, and it's just so funny. And it also has one of the best lines in the whole film when Harley Quinn tells them, "Just try not to stand out, so stick up your assy." Like, it's just so funny. and that's another thing. Batman has some great lines in the film. Like I think I even referenced it in a past episode that we did together. And I love the scene where Harley Quinn finally gets in his face and she's like, "Why don't you trust me?" And he goes, "Because you're unpredictable, Harley. I don't know what's going to happen. The wind could change, or maybe it's Thursday."
It's Thursday.
And then she goes at the very end, "You're right, it's Thursday." I was dying. But I think what pretty much put the nail in the coffin for me in regards to the whole package is the whole ending. Like when Swamp Thing comes out, I'm like saying to myself, am I watching a Batman movie or am I watching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic? Like, what the hell am I watching? Especially after seeing Swamp Thing in Justice League Dark, which we will discuss in a future episode.
Yeah. No, I loved what they did with Swamp Thing here. It was just because he comes up this massive,
it's so Disneyfied. It's so Disneyfied.
Huge monolithic monster of a man, and Woodrow is literally left in awe as he looks at this thing, and he essentially just says, I'll leave it to you. You could destroy the world. I'm hoping you won't. Bye," and just disappears. And it's just like, what the hell?
and the last scene in the movie when Harley Quinn just goes, "Does anybody have a match?" Like, oh God, really? I was like, wow, you really were gonna end it on such a childish note. I mean, and then after the credits are rolling, you see the Floronic Man running through the woods on fire.
Yeah, but that's the tone of the whole film.
Exactly.
I think there's only two ways you're going to come at this film. I don't think there's any middle ground. You're either going to totally hate it because you want a completely serious Batman film, and this just ain't for you, or you're going to really love it because you just love the quirk, the humor, the completely off the wall nature of how things are playing out. And I fall on that camp. And for me, I loved every minute of this. It's not a perfect film. There are the odd little things where, like a couple of jokes that you see coming a mile off, a couple of jokes that are a bit too childish. There's like the bit where Harley chases after that guy, drags on for a bit, especially considering the punchline that's coming. You know that this guy ain't going to be anything to do with the case, that she's just after him for some other random thing. But other than that, yeah, I loved it. I've seen it 3 times now, and I've just had a blast with it every time. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Wow, good job, man. I mean, I'll tell you something. Maybe I'll break the mold here. Maybe I will fall into the middle here because based on the conversation that I had with you, I realized I actually like it a little bit more than I thought that I do, you know? But I think I should watch it. I think if I watch it a couple more times, you know, maybe it will be nowhere near the same as Justice League Gods and Monsters, but maybe it will be on the same tone. You know, the more I watch it, maybe the more I'll enjoy it. I mean, right now, I actually think that I fall somewhere in the middle. Like, I'd give it a 2.5 stars out of 4. But again, it's just like, you know, I knew that this was coming to a certain degree. I was very, even though I still felt I was a bit put off, because again, I'm used to something in some way, and to just see it going in a completely different direction, like it was just a little hard for me to get used to it. But I think that some of the lines and the fan service that is given here really allows this film to have a tremendous amount of likability than you would anticipate it to have.
Yeah, definitely.
But now for the final film, I'm really excited to talk about this one because for years I had been saying that the best film in this library was Batman Under the Red Hood. And I said this to so many people. It's going to take something truly special from these guys to have this one knocked off of its throne. Well, you know something? That movie came to pass. And it is Batman Gotham by Gaslight, based on the Elseworlds title. And I've got to tell you the God's honest truth. This movie is freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
It is wonderful.
This is a movie that does very well what The Killing Joke should have done but didn't, which is that it takes a story and it incorporates bits from another story from the comic books and then meshes them together but changes stuff up as well so that it then becomes its own entity. So this is actually kind of it. So there was a sequel to Gotham by Gaslight.
Okay.
I've never read it, but I think a lot of the stuff to do with the blimp in this one kind of comes from that one, and a lot of stuff to do with the killer they pull from, like the World's Fair stuff comes from that one. So they've kind of amalgamated all these different bits from both stories. It is primarily Gotham by Gaslight, though. But yeah, the twist of who the killer is, just I did not see coming, because I've read Gotham by Gaslight. It was one of the first graphic novels I ever read, in fact. And so to me, this was always going to end with Jack the Ripper, you know, a faceless kind of, you know, and the fact that they make it someone who's so personal to the Batman world, it's both something that could really upset fans, but also a stroke of genius to me, because it is an Elseworlds title, so you can do anything. You don't have to tie yourself directly into, you know, these characters as we know them, or like to think we know them. You can change them up a bit because they're one-offs in a different world, in a different time, whatever. So for me, it really works. It works really well.
Well, I gotta tell you, this one being their first actual film based on an Elseworlds title, alongside Justice League Gods and Monsters, which is based around the Elseworlds theme, it just makes me all the more excited, having a strange feeling that a Kingdom Come movie is coming from these guys. But Batman couldn't be the more perfect comic book character to put into a scene which is in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. This is a movie that not only Batman fans can appreciate, but people who are fans of things like Sherlock Holmes and classic horror stories with a Batman element in it. I just love the fact that you didn't even need the Joker to give to give the fans a truly great fresh take on Batman. I mean, we do have a lot of nods to the Batman mythos. Like, I love what they did with Poison Ivy. I love what they did with Selena Kyle and Harvey Dent. I think my favorite part of the movie is what they did with all the Robins. I love that.
I like what they do with the Robins. I love Alfred in this. I do think my favorite thing in this, I think, is Selena Kyle.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah,
and Jennifer Carpenter does a great job as her voice.
Yeah, definitely. I love the dynamic there between her and Bruce, and them kind of figuring each other out. And they are perfect for this world, this time period. The artwork is pretty great as well for these films. I love the setting, it's just the feel of it. It's like that when they're fighting Jack in the abattoir place. It's such a great setting. It's a perfect mood for Batman, for this character. It's just
absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
And it feels like a film as well that actually is about something, that it has something to say. You know, it's talking about class and evil, and how, you know, the surface veneer can often hide the fact that underneath is a rotting corpse. It's like you've got this World's Fair in which all the high class people go to, and, you know, Gordon is there as one of those people, like protecting the higher class citizens and that. And it's this perfect looking modern cityscape and things like that. And yet actually that's where the corruption lies. That's where, you know, the killer is hiding in their midst, so to speak. It's just all that filters down to the lower classes, who essentially get the blame, who essentially get pushed aside and forgotten about. So it is a film about class and the, you know, the sexes as well, male and female, and expectations on each and things like that. So yeah, I loved it. I love it when these movies actually feel like they've got something to say. And beyond that, it is just a damn good action piece, character study of Bruce and Selena. It's great. I loved it. I can't think of the right lot to fault it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the best things about this film is that I think the timing for this movie to come out was the perfect time, because in popular culture, one of the big things that's going on right now, particularly in DC, is all the merchandise of DC bombshells. Everybody is loving these DC characters as these icons that look like they came out of, you know, the early 20th century. And after a string of okay DC films, I mean, like, we hadn't really had a truly great one of those DC films. Like, we had some that were better than others. Because what I always said was, after Batman The Dark Knight Returns came out, I was very curious as to where this library was going to go. And we had a lot more Batman the Killing Jokes than we did Justice League Gods and Monsters. So the fact that Bruce Timm finally decides to give us something truly great, and for me personally, it was great to see Bruce Greenwood come back and voice Batman again, because I love Bruce Greenwood as Batman.
Yeah, I do.
So I thought that he was the perfect choice to voice Batman in this film. I don't think that... Do you think that Kevin Conroy would have worked in this one? I'm just curious.
No, I don't.
I agree. I
think
agree.
Kevin Conroy is Batman the Animated Series. He works for that style. I actually think Bruce Greenwood would have been a better choice for The Killing Joke, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't know who would have got to do the Joker. Probably not Joe DiMaggio, because...
Yeah, John DiMaggio is a more mature version of Mark Hamill, if you will.
Yeah,
You
just
know what? Okay, then let me ask you. What about do you think Michael Emerson would have worked? Because he was really great in Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. He was a very creepy Joker.
yeah. I reckon he probably would have suited that one better than Mark Hamill. I reckon. Yeah, I'd go with that. I'd put Bruce Greenwood in there and him. Yeah, that would
Wow.
be.
All right, just
Yeah.
curious. Yeah, I mean, like, this is a great film. It's just so because I love when I love the concept of the multiverse, if you will, because it's like we talked about movies like Flashpoint Paradox, where we saw all the heroes in a different light, and this is just another one of those great ones. Same things with Justice League: Crisis on Two Earths. I still can't believe how far we've gone in terms of talking about all of these films so far. But I mean, if there's anything that I could fault it towards, it's not the movie itself, but one of the few things that I have noticed, especially since Justice League War, I think that the animation has really been downgraded a lot with these
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
It
Like
seemed a little choppy to me.
it's not as fluid, is it? Like I love the designs on this one. I
Mm-hmm.
think all the design work on this film is absolutely brilliant. But I feel like they're kind of cutting corners with how many frames they're they're animating, so that so that they don't have to put as much work into getting these films out, I guess. But it yeah, it doesn't hurt the film too much because, like I say, I still love
No,
the design work
and
of
so much
everything
of
that's
and
going on.
so much makes up for it. The story, the
Mm, mm,
characters, there's so
yeah,
many things that make you forget about the animation in
mm,
terms of the film and in general. I think that if this is a slow burn that is so worth watching because you're so engaged in the story.
mm,
And I wish that we could get some more of these. It's like, I'll bring up Justice League Gods and Monsters again. It's such a slow burn, but you are so into the story that you're getting. And
because there's a
yeah,
genuine mystery. There's a genuine mystery there
absolutely.
that unfolds, and
Absolutely.
it's like so often with these films, you kind of know where they're leading. You're going to have a big boss you're going to have a fight, and if it's a Justice League one, there's going to be tons of minions. They'll have some like something, a whole alien race of minions that'll just fight the main Justice League, while whoever the main character is in that particular one will go head to head with the big villain. It's just like great, but I actually prefer these that actually, they have a genuine mystery, and it's not all just about the big showdown. That although when that showdown comes in this one, it is pretty entertaining. I love the setting of it. I love the fact that Gordon goes down in flames. It's just, yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely it's something fresh, and I think
Mm,
that that was something that we were truly lacking in this. And I love the fact that the threat is so ominous, yet at the same time, it's I'm trying. I want to make sure I get the words out right perfectly. It's like it's an ominous threat, but at the same time, it's not necessarily something that is a threat to everybody. And that goes
mm,
back to the whole talk that you said earlier about class. It's like the blue bloods don't really care, but
mm,
everybody below them is terrified.
mm.
And this is also kind of funny how all three of these films are connected by a song and dance number. In this one,
Yeah.
Selena Kyle does a song and dance. But
Mm.
I will say this, the best song and dance goes to Rob Paulson. I'm saying that right now. Rob Paulson
It's
was the highlight of that musical group.
it's
But
certainly
Bruce Tim
entertaining.
does this. Bruce
Yeah.
Tim does this. He
Mm.
made Batman sing in Justice League. So he likes the
He did.
music.
Yeah. It works well here.
Yes,
It seems
absolutely.
right. It doesn't seem like it's just thrown in here. It's part of the world in which it's taking place.
It
Um,
fits the mood.
there's something that I just remembered then. The scene with Leslie Tompkins
Yes,
when
yes. I'm
they
glad you mentioned her.
when they kill her off, it's like wow, they went there. Blimey,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
And it literally is no holds barred because it's this Elseworlds thing. They can literally do whatever they want, and it's kind of finite for this particular story. So So no one's safe, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that they take these characters that we know and love, put them in these different settings, and because we know that they're not tied to a bigger universe, they can do anything with them, and it adds weight to the film. It adds stakes to the film, but
Right. Exactly.
and it really makes me want them to do an adaptation of Bloodstorm, the
Okay, I don't even know
Batman
what that
versus.
is.
Oh, right. So I think they did about 3, maybe 4 of them. So basically, Batman versus Dracula.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and
Well,
it's
that's
set
something
in a
that's been done many times.
yeah. Well, it's set in a similar time period as this, as Gotham by Gaslight. So it's very gothic, very yeah. I think it would having. I mean, it's not one of my favorite stories, to be perfectly honest. But then neither was Gotham by Gaslight. It's one that I liked, but it wasn't up there for me as one of my favorites. But having seen what they've done with Gotham by Gaslight in this film,
Yeah.
it would really make me be open to seeing what they do with that particular iteration, the Bloodstorm, and I think was it Blood Rain, and I think the first one was just called Batman versus Dracula. I don't know, and then the sequel was Bloodstorm. I don't know, but that whole series of graphic novels that they did, I think, based on the strength of this film, would probably do
Yeah.
well.
It's just a shame that, the rest of the DC world really would not have a place in this kind of atmosphere. Like somebody like me, I would love to see all the DC characters in different kinds of settings and different kind of worlds, but what would be really, really cool? Like if they wanted to make a movie, even though they've already done this time period, I think it would be really interesting to see like a Superman story in the 1950s during the Cold War. I mean, obviously they may end up at some point in time doing Superman Red Sun, which would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of because I don't really know that many Superman stories because obviously I'm the Batman guy. I can
Right.
pinpoint a whole load of Batman stories in it. I mean, still the big one for me is Nightfall, obviously, and I do think they're going to
Yeah.
get there probably
They,
sooner
they they
rather than later.
seem to be, yeah, there's a
Mm.
lot of talk as to the projects that they're working on right now. That's come up in conversation. I know Kingdom Come has come up in conversation. Red Sun, Sinestro Corps War, Death in the Family. Although I will say, if they want to do Death in the Family, I really hope that they get Jensen Ackles back and really use the same. If they could use the same animation style as Under the Red Hood, that would be an excellent prequel. I would love to see that as a prequel to Under the Red Hood.
Yeah,
If they could get Brandon Vietti back to direct it.
yeah, yeah. That'd be good. I'd be happy if they did that. So yeah, scores for this one.
Perfect 4. This is a perfect 4 for me. I love this film to death.
I rated it a 4.5 out of 5. I'm not entirely sure why. I've only seen it twice now, and I loved it more the second time than I did the first time. The first time I loved it, but I was reluctant to give it too high a rating in case one of those second viewing kind of things knocked it down. But it didn't. It's gone up on second viewing, and I think I don't know. I'm still reluctant to give it the perfect score, but I don't know why. But maybe next time I watch it, it will go
You
up to a
just don't
5.
want to knock Wonder Woman off that pedestal, don't you? You don't want to knock Wonder Woman off.
If there's a film to do it, it'd probably be this one, to be honest.
All right. Well, listen. That pretty much wraps it up, everybody. I know it's a shorter episode than usual, but hey, something, we got things to do and places to be, but I think we covered a great deal of ground today. So, Bryan, I just want to thank you once again for joining me, and sit tight, everybody, because this is not going to be the last Batman-centric show this year, because we are going to be tackling the Adam West and Burt Ward ones later on this year. I know that we have to. We can't. It would not be a celebration for Batman if we didn't talk about those films later on this year. So keep watching, everybody. I'm thinking that we're going to be returning in the spring around the time that The new film comes out, which is Justice League versus the Fatal Five, which I'm very excited to see. But in the meantime, that wraps it up. So once again, Bryan, thank you very much for coming on to talk Batman with me and DC animation. Everybody who did come to watch tonight, thank you very much. And we will see you all in the next one.
Goodbye.
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.